You mentioned you're sort of like low on the totem pole. What exactly does that hierarchy look like?
There's like smoke jumpers or like special forces, wildland kind of guys, and you got hot shots, and those guys are super hardcore elite people. And
They're like skydiving into the fires, right?
yeah, the smoke jumpers. You got the David Goggins people.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for taking part in this immersive listening experience. A meaningful existence is a moving target that, no matter how close, will always be out of reach. We hope this message finds you with an outstretched hand. As we attempt to uncover complex truths, remember, life's toughest questions can be answered if we all just focus on one thing: being good people.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Good People, episode 70. My guest today is Jonathan Harned. Jonathan is a EMT, Wildlands firefighter, and the owner of Die Tired Co. This is Jonathan's second time on the show, and in today's episode, we talk about all of the things that he's been up to since we last spoke. How he got involved with Wildlands firefighting, what it's like to be a Wildlands firefighter, and at the end of the episode, we talk a little bit more about deeper conversations like purpose, pursuing passion, working a 9-to-5, balancing this crazy life that we all live. It was a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy. If you guys are on YouTube, before the show begins, please head on down and like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on our notifications so you don't miss our weekly uploads. Without further ado, enjoy. How are you, man? Thanks for being willing to come on.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm always down to do stuff like this. I've been doing all right. Been busy. Just got back from a wedding in Boise and just kind of hitting the ground on all the landing gears. I got back, we're moving a bunch of shit. My wife's moving out of her salon, so we're getting like a bunch of furniture and stuff. But
Oh, cool.
yeah, so we're doing that.
Does she own a salon, or does she just work at one?
No, she was renting out like if you're familiar with Solis Salon, she was renting out like a little office space there to do it out of. But it was super expensive, so we ended up just moving her to like a regular salon where she's just renting a booth there.
Oh, gotcha.
There's like half the cost, especially in California. It's pretty pricey.
Yeah. Dude, how awful is moving? I know it's a little bit different, but like that's probably in my top 2 at least favorite things to do in the world is move.
The worst thing is to move my friends. I hate it more than moving myself.
You have a truck, right?
I have a Tacoma. Yeah, the Tacoma helps. You know, it's still gonna be multiple trips. But if you have that, then you maybe like tow a U-Haul behind it or something, little flatbed. Be fine. But there's been like multiple people where I moved them and I show up and they don't have anything packed. And it was like, oh, awesome, dude. So I always give people a buffer now. I was like, you got me for like 3 hours because that should be good to do like 2, maybe 3 trips across town, but I'm not going to pack all your shit for you.
Yeah, dude, my sister moved like 2 or 3 years ago, and it was the same thing where she didn't pack anything. And ever since then, I'm like, never again. I should just set the same boundaries. Like I'll pick the stuff up, but whatever's ready when I'm there is what I'm taking, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah. I'll give a timeline now. I feel that, and then like I'll get there, and of course they were like, "Oh, we do like one more trip," and then if you don't do it now, they have to like rent something or like hire someone to help them because it was like, dude. So I'll try to avoid it. I think my friends know I hate it because a lot of my friends have moved without even like talking to me about it. I'm like, sick.
Yeah. I also think after the age of like 30, just hire movers. You know, like it's expensive, but whatever.
Yeah, it's one thing if you have like the boys, you know, where you're like your best buds. But yeah, there's been some people that ask me, I'm not really tight with them. They just not have a truck. I'm like, nah, dude. Someone's trying to give me to help them move. They live 2 hours away from me. And they're like, yeah, I'll buy like pizza and beer and stuff. I was like, pass, dude. That's my entire day.
Dude, that is like the worst deal ever. You just like spent all day doing really tough labor, carrying shit in, and then you just have to eat pizza and beer. Like that sucks.
Yeah, like it cost you. Give me $5 worth of pizza.
Well, otherwise with that, something I'm excited to talk to you about is the wildland firefighting stuff, man. So tell me a little bit about that. Give me a brief overview of the last several months since we've spoken last.
Yeah, because I think the last time we talked was maybe right after my first season. And I only got in like half a season that time. I had to kind of pick up another job to pay for rent and all that. But yeah, dude, this last season came around and it's been a really really sick experience of just a lot of life lessons. I'm on like not bottom tier, but like I'm definitely like a bottom tier, like, firefighter and doing that. So very humbling experience, but yeah, it's been awesome. There's a lot of things that I'll hear people I look up to talk about that I can kind of better understand from doing it. I was training pretty hard to work my way up to it. Hiking with weight and all that, and weighted vests and packs and stuff, and try to get into shape. And so far, it's paid off. The season started, and I wasn't getting obliterated. So yeah, it's had like a really, really strong start. I've been having a great time. Really awesome bunch of guys on my crew. So yeah, it's been super cool. So yeah, I've been getting along with everyone really well. We did a rollout to the Whitefire just north of Los Angeles a couple weeks ago, and that was a great time. We had bunch of awesome people, dude. Super, super fun experience.
Yeah. Is that season still ongoing? Like you're still in that?
Yeah, it just started. So yeah, we're at like the very beginning of it.
What time of the year is that ongoing? Usually starts and ends at certain times, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, like May through like November ish, I want to say. Someone's gonna quote me wrong on that one, but yeah, roughly in that time frame. And this year it kind of started a little bit earlier. Fires were kind of popping off, earlier than normal. Last year was pretty slow, so fuel had a lot of time to like grow and build up. It's just a lot drier and hotter this year too than last year.
Yeah, I was about to ask you that, man. Like, so I trained this guy who grew up in California. It was in Northern California. I'm not exactly sure the specific area, but we've had a lot of smoke in my area in Virginia over the course of this past year, like a lot. And this is the first time that I feel like I'm misremembering, but I'm pretty sure that this is the first time ever in my life that there has been wildfire smoke in this area. And I remember going into a training session with him, and it had been pretty bad for a couple days. And I was like, dude, this is crazy. I've never seen this before. Like everything looks weird. And he was like, this isn't like a normal thing around here. And I was like, no. But it seems like it's kind of a problem this year. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have an app that like shows me where all the little wildfires are popping up across the United States, and like Washington is just popping off right now. Oregon, a little bit Northern California. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's worse than like previous seasons, but definitely like, it's a lot hotter than last year. A lot more stuff popping up. I was just in Boise this past week, and it was kind of have this like constant haze, like everywhere we went, a little bit of smoke in the air and, and whatnot. But yeah, we had, I think California had our 5th largest fire in California history this season. That one of my crew guys is on a strike team over there doing that whole thing. So yeah, crazy stuff.
Talk to me about, I know you mentioned like the personal side of things with the training for you, hiking and rucking and things like that. I've obviously been following along a little bit through Instagram, but talk to me a little bit more about now that you've sort of got your feet wet with it. I know last season you said you only were there halfway, and if I'm remembering correctly, it wasn't because it was a little bit slower. It wasn't quite what you had anticipated, but now that you've done it and you've got some experience under your belt, what do you feel like are some of the things that you've taken away, either positive or negative?
Yeah. A really big thing was, so for like the previous season, it kind of gave me an idea of where I should be physical fitness wise to go into this next one and be a little bit better prepared. And, you're never going to be like fully ready, but at least not, get your teeth kicked in sort of a deal. So, I mean, the past couple months, I would go hiking with all this weight. And I mean, to my limit, I would push myself like as far as I could possibly go. Either like my ankles are getting cut up or my heart's about to explode or something. And that's kind of what I did, a couple times a week for maybe 4 months leading up to it. So the training style I was trying to handle like as sadistically as possible in hopes that, whatever pain I suffer during the training is going to be pain I don't suffer when I'm on the job and have to perform. And so far I think it's paid off. I feel really good with just like PT hikes that we're doing and cutting line and stuff like that. I feel pretty good about it. And then just realizing like the more you prepare for something like that, it's not just about you, but you can actually contribute a lot more to other people. And if I went into it and I'm super out of shape, how am I possibly going to benefit someone if they're also having a hard time, So I wanted to be, that's kind of what I was imagining when I was training of like what I wanted to be. I want to be the guy that's like, I can yank everyone up off the ground. Like, let's go. I can, if you are getting burnt out, I can carry some extra gear, a pack or fuel cans or whatever. And that's just like what I wanted to be able to do is be equipped to help people out and not just meet the bare minimum requirements, you know?
It's interesting. I was actually thinking about this really recently in the context of guys who are in the military who train, especially like the special operators, because of the physical demands of the job. Like I, for example, I think there's probably a lot still for me to learn, but I can come up with like a quote unquote optimal training program, especially working with somebody one-on-one over time, utilizing perfect rest windows and making sure that everything's dialed in and their nutrition is on point. And it's interesting because like jobs like you have, there's this unknown, unknowable kind of variable. And so for a lot of the training that you almost have to intentionally subject yourself to not optimal or even detrimental circumstances, like waking up earlier than you probably should so you can go for a hike when you're tired, right? And I think that there's something to be said about the mental training that a lot of people gloss over, especially in the kind of day and age we're living in now, where the amount of fitness content online is just infinite, right? Like people miss that point a lot. If you want to accomplish something in this vein that is challenging, probably 80% of a mental game of being out there and being willing and capable to do this hard job. You almost have to train unintelligently, but it's the right thing to do. And it's just interesting because it sounds like you kind of took that same approach with your hikes and rucks and PT and stuff.
Yeah, thanks, man. I also agree. I'm too stupid to figure out the smartest side of things. But no, I mean, I think that's a great point. And there is a lot of value in learning efficiency, right? And if you're practicing these movements in a controlled environment, they're easier to pull off because you're stronger and your body knows how to do these movements when you're actually in the real world application. So, I mean, that's a huge part of it too. And there's also the side of it of just like mindlessly destroying yourself, because what do you think is going to happen when you're actually out there is the whole thing is going to go way beyond what you thought you had to do. So I think you have to have those two things in tandem. I don't think it's good to just destroy yourself and not really learn like any technicalities. A big part of it is like also getting my nutrition together and, cutting out processed foods and unnecessary sugar and getting my, sodium and electrolyte. Like there's a lot of stuff like that I'm trying to balance out too. But yeah, I mean, especially like entry level stuff that I'm doing, I think it benefits me more to do kind of like the Neanderthal training. But you also have like guys that are hot shots that are outworking me by 100, right? And so those guys, you have to have it dialed in like what you're talking about, because you can't survive if you're just training dumb. But dumb training works for me pretty well. So
yeah. Well, I think there's something to be said. Like when I did my 100-mile prep, on Saturdays, I would, over the course of the prep, as I built up to my longest runs, I would, instead of running longer and longer, I would just wake up earlier and earlier. And so like, I think the earliest I got up for my longest run on a Saturday was like a 6-hour run. And I got up at 2 or 3 a.m. to do it. Yeah. And dude, it was horrible. Like I remember it being like 2 a.m. and I'm just eating pancakes, like getting myself ready to do this horrible run that I know that I have to do. And in my mind, I'm like, this is all work. Like it's going to prepare me. It's going to prepare me. And I think it did to a lot of degrees, right? Like, you learn a lot about yourself, and specifically when it comes to running, you can't really trust yourself before like 6 a.m. That your feelings and thoughts about actually doing it. But it paid off big time. Like I had to run through the night twice during the 100-miler that I did because it took me so damn long. But yeah, I think there's something. The more you can put yourself, which you never can, but the closer you can get to the actual situation in terms of training is the best thing that you can do for yourself.
Yeah. I always kind of thought like the more suffering I put in now, the less suffering I'm going to go through later, and which is absolutely true. And you're never going to cancel one or the other out, but yeah. And I think like the more pain or discomfort you can put yourself through, like you wake up at 2 a.m. to go run 100 miles. There's also like that mental talk that you don't get to a normal life. And so when you are faced with challenges that it's for real, in real life, you at least are accustomed to it, or it's not totally unfamiliar to have thoughts of we can't do it, or I have to quit now. And the more you can get your your mind to talk to you in a negative way and push past that, the better, because it's going to no matter what. And so, I mean, there's also a huge mental training aspect as well, I think.
Yeah, I've actually thought a lot about this because I'm like by nature a contrarian, and I would just kind of want to disagree with the common way of thinking because I don't know. I guess subconsciously I think it's cool, but like after I did my 100 miler, there was a lot of reflection of like, what's the point of me even doing this? Like, it seems like everybody that has a fitness Instagram is trying to run an ultra marathon. Like it's quite a selfish thing to do. You expect a lot of people to come out there and support you, or you don't expect it, but like you sort of need people to come out there to help you through it. It's demanding on your family and your friends because of the amount of time it takes to train, et cetera. Right.
Right.
And I definitely don't regret what I did at all by any means, but I played around with that a lot in my head. Like, why, what is the application of this outside of just, like proving that I'm this tough guy? And I used to think about that a lot. Like, well, this isn't actually real. Like, I could have pulled out at any time. And that's not really true. Like, I mean, I could have done all those things, but I think what it's given me now is a model that I can use against anytime I need to be resilient or get through a challenging thing. And so people say that a lot, like we're preparing ourselves for the hard time. But I think more accurately, you've given yourself a model for the hard times. And obviously when real shit happens, it's really hard and you're like, man, I wasn't prepared for this at all. But it takes a lot of mental acuity and focus and discipline to fall back on the system that you've sort of created in your head and try to apply those same principles that you got from the quote unquote fake thing to the actual thing. So I think it's invaluable to experience at some level, whether it's running or insert any hard task. It's important to try to pursue something like that in your life.
Yeah, definitely. And then, yeah, I mean, to your point, after you accomplish whatever this seemingly impossible goal, all these challenges in life in the future, seem pretty small in comparison, and at least gives you like a structure of, okay, I know I can do this. I can say yes to whatever this task is because I know I'm capable of it at least. And I mean, something I learned working on at Hand Crew with 20 guys cutting line all day is there's tasks that you look at and you're like, there is no way, dude. And slowly but surely, you're working and you look up and you realize we're already halfway done. And I mean, you truly can accomplish impossible tasks with the right team when you have the right people with you and when everyone's there for the same common purpose and belief system. And I think you can do what you want to do and turbocharge it by having the right team around you. And in the real life, just setting it up where like you have to be I want to be selective with my friends I have around me. I want people that are like pushing me and firing me up and, and they believe in something better for themselves. And then just like normal life tasks are way more accomplishable, when it's not just you and you have someone to fall back on.
You mentioned culture a lot throughout the last, 10 or 15 minutes or whatever that we've been talking. And I'm curious a little bit about this because you're somebody who's worked as an EMT. I have a lot of like law enforcement EMT friends just from jiu-jitsu and working in the fitness industry. And I feel like a common trend that I've heard and I guess seen from the outside is that the quality of individual that you're dealing with is really just dependent on the organizations that you get involved with in your area. Like some organizations are fantastic. It's like top of the line, the standard's super high. And in other places, it's not really like that at all. And I'm curious, what in your experience so far, have you seen the differences between, obviously you don't have to call out any specific organization that you've worked for, but like, it sounds like the people in this Wildlands firefighting world are of the same mind. They're really focused and diligent about the kind of job that they do. But speak a little bit on that. Are there any big contrasts that you've seen, or have you been pretty fortunate with the kind of people that you've worked with in both areas?
Yeah, I've been actually really pleasantly surprised in both facets of that. I started actually, I guess I did Wildland first, but I have more experience as an EMT than Wildland firefighting. And I mean, the company I worked for was pretty lackluster, for lack of better terms, and how they took care of their EMTs and employees in general. And, very minimum effort on like managerial side. But the people I worked with, the actual EMTs, There's a lot of really good guys, very professional, dialed individuals. And for the most part, no one really wants to be an EMT. It's a stepping stone job. So a lot of these people have the common mindset of, I believe in something bigger than myself, and that's why I'm here. I'm here for this bigger cause or goal. So it, you know, even though you're receiving minimum effort from people employing you, these people still believe in this bigger cause. It's not about the money. It's not about how you treat me. It's about what I believe I can do. And so that's been like a really cool experience. And, obviously you're always going to get people that don't care or whatever. And I think it's kind of far and few between in this field. And at least in my experience and the people I've met out in California, is a lot of very motivated individuals. And it's times 10 for Wildland. I mean, a lot of the guys in my crew are not even firefighter career focused. A lot of them is just kind of a job or some way to get them out of kind of an unfortunate life circumstance that they're in before. And they still show up, and the currency out there is if you show up, you put out like a mule, then you have respect, you're good with the guys. It really, your previous background and even where you want to go in the future almost doesn't matter if you're showing up and you're putting in the work and helping out your fellow man type of a thing. And there's also guys that kind of look good on paper and they show up and they don't work. And, everyone has a chip on their shoulder for that person. And even if you get along with them in real life and talking and stuff, well, when you're out there and now I have to do twice my job because you're not doing yours, like, it's hard to get along with those people. So, but I mean, I think that the general mindset is I just believe in this huge cause, or I believe in so much more for myself. And, being out there, especially for men doing manual labor, you're swinging an axe all day or heavy tool or whatever, you're hiking, you're outside. It's so good for your mental health that it's hard to be like a bad person out there. I mean, I was like almost half our crew, maybe on paper, look like kind of sketchy individuals. And when you're out there, they're like the warmest, nicest human beings. And you're just in such a positive environment, even though it sucks and it's hard and it's hot and whatever. It's just a really like healthy way to be for your mental state as well as your physical.
Mm. What's the timeline? Like take me through that process of, are you getting a call and you've got to be somewhere by a certain time? How long are you out there? What does showing up to fire look like?
Yeah. We all work for a pretty small fire department, and they basically do like contracts. So some higher calling will call us to go onto a fire. I'm 2 hours from station, so I'm kind of a ways away, and they would send us all kind of like a group text saying like, hey, we have a call. Everyone get here as fast as you can, or get here by, whatever, this time, then we're going to head out. So everyone kind of scrambles. So I have my bag packed right now, like my boots ready and everything. And you basically just kind of, if you get a call during the day, you drop what you're doing and you head out to station, then you guys drive out from there. So kind of like 24-hour on call.
Yeah. And then when you're out there, how long are you before it just kind of depends on how long it takes to get things handled?
Yeah. We went on one that was like, by the time we got there, it's looking like it would be like 8 days, but they could go as long as, 2 or 3 weeks. If it's a state of emergency, I think it can be up to 60 days before your crew gets demobbed. So, I mean, yeah, it's hard to tell. We got we did another role that was like, the fire was basically out by the time we got there kind of thing. So we were just doing mop up work and, fixing a couple things on people's properties and whatnot. So we were only out there for like a week basically, and then came back home. But yeah, it's hard to tell. If it's a big old fire, then you could be out there for 3 weeks pretty easily.
Wow. And what is like I say accommodations? I'm sure it's not much. Like, are you camping? Are you staying at a station somewhere? Is it some combination of any of those things?
Yeah. So minimal experience coming from me, but what I've been a part of is there's a big kind of base camp where all of the departments will show up, like local government, CAL FIRE, shot crews, and you kind of all have this base camp, right? And could be maybe like 30, 45 minutes away from the actual fire that you're doing work at from driving. And then they have food there. They'll have, like ours had like a food truck kind of a scenario. They had little bunker trailers with like bunk beds in that people could sleep in, which you should never do because it probably smells horrid in there. So we slept outside. Sleeping scenario, we just found a patch of grass and laid sleeping bags down on it, and that was where we slept. But yeah, they'll have like porta potties and stuff out there. They take care of you. You know, they have food and stuff, so you're not bringing all of your own camping supplies and food and all that. Like they give you, you know, like water. You'll show up to a little tent and they say, "What do you want?" You say, "I want 6 cases of water and 2 cases of Gatorade," and then they hand it to you, carry it to your vehicle before you head out on the fire that day.
They give you all the basic human needs that one would need when fighting the mother nature.
Yeah, essentially, hopefully.
Yeah. What does the process look like for gearing up to this? Maybe we glossed over this a little bit, but like, are you in, and are you required to do any sort of like team environment thing? Or are you just showing up to the station and going through some like basic, you know, onboarding training type stuff before they send you out there? Like, how much time do you get to work on the thing before you actually have to go do the thing?
Yeah, I think every department's a little bit different. Ours, we had a couple things to sign off on to get your red card, which is just a card saying I'm allowed to operate on Wildland fire. I'm not just like a civilian showing up. So there's things like you have to get checked off on deploying your fire shelter in a timely manner, how to operate chainsaws, again, like S212 certification, firefighter safety. There's a couple online courses that, you know, they want you to take, and that takes couple hours or a couple days, I guess, to get those done. And then we're do like little PT hikes. Nothing crazy, but we also had like a lot of local projects where our department's at. So we're doing like a controlled burn before the season started. So we actually got to work on fire before things kicked off, which is cool. So you're already, you know, carrying gear and operating and doing what you would do on a normal fire, just kind of like a scaled down version.
And are you getting to work? I'm sure it's the same department, so you're probably working with the same kind of individuals for the majority of it. Like it's the same team, same guys.
Like training versus going on a roll, you mean?
Yeah, or I guess just in either case, right? Like you're familiar with the people that you're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say we maybe have like 25 people that say they're good to go, and then, you know, we just put together as big of it. I think the limit is 21 people that we can take out on a fire, 2021. So they would just pick from that pool, and then obviously you're gonna have guys that can't make it sometimes, whatever, with life coming up. So yeah, but yeah, generally we all know each other, we all get along. Yeah. So yeah, same people. I think other departments, if you have like a bunch, like you could have 200 people that want to work in this department. So now you have a pool of 200 people and you're sending out 20 on a fire. So I think there's definitely a possibility of going out with kind of people you don't know that well, but our crew is pretty small to where we all, you know each other by name and that kind of thing.
You mentioned you're sort of like low on the totem pole. What exactly does that hierarchy look like position wise? Like, you know, is there any sort of, I'm sure there's obviously somebody that's in charge or several people, but then even beyond that, like what are ways and avenues that you could take in this profession and career that would allow you to sort of stay in this world with advancement?
Yeah, there's education you can take, different departments or organizations you can sign on with, and they'll train you up, and you can kind of rank up in their system. It depends on where you want to go. You can join a hotshot crew, and those guys are kind of like there's like smoke jumpers, they're like special forces, wildland kind of guys, and you got hotshots, and those guys are super hardcore elite people, and
they're like skydiving into the fires, right?
Yeah, the smoke jumpers. You have the David Goggins people.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
It's crazy, yeah. Yeah, which would be sick. Those guys are insane. They're almost not even human. They're different level of human being for sure. But yeah, you can get on those crews, and I mean, you can get on a shot crew technically with minimal experience. Some guys have zero experience and they'll get hired on. So I mean, there's a lot of avenues. There's very much, I think, a lot of gray area in there. It really depends on what you want to do. Do you want to work on a hand crew? Do you want to work on an engine so you don't have to work on a hand crew? You can do helitack, work on a helicopter, and they kind of fly in and drop you off on a mountain. And then you do hand crew stuff. So it really depends on what you want to do. If you want to make money, you probably just go to CAL FIRE and do that. So everyone makes fun of CAL FIRE, but everyone also secretly applies to their positions when no one's looking.
What kind of aspirations do you have for yourself with this? Is it kind of up in the air, or do you have like a specific path or trajectory in mind?
Yeah, I'm kind of keeping it up in the air for now. Maybe generally thinking structure would be cool in the future. I don't have my Fire Academy yet, so I want to do that this next year. Go through Fire Academy, get my Firefighter 1 certification. I love Wildland. There's not a ton of room, in my opinion, to like, financially sustain a family doing that. And then you're gone all the time. So I don't know if that's like my long-term goal, but I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants right now. I have a little short stuff. Like Fire Academy is probably the biggest thing I have in my radar, and I'm just going to kind of see where it goes from there. But I'm having a great time. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on now. I'm just vibing.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned just in California the regulations around doing that. Like, are you fulfilling or have you fulfilled the EMT time required before you can start doing the fire stuff?
For fire stuff, yeah. I think last time we were talking about medic school. But yeah, as far as I know right now, I'm not super interested in doing medic school until maybe a ways down the road. So I have a couple more months of EMT that I need for that, but that would probably be in the distant future for me. So now it's just going to Fire Academy and taking it from there.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I feel like you're in your 20s still, right? Late 20s, early
20s. Yeah.
What is it? 20 what?
28.
Yeah. You still got your whole life ahead of you, man. I feel like being in your 20s is just like, I have no idea what's happening, but we're going to figure it out.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing this whole time. It's worked out so far. I had no idea what I was going to do. I kind of quit my job to go to EMT school, and here I am now. So it's working.
Yeah, I always just say it's kind of silly to assume that you know where you're going to be in the next several years, because if you think back, like however, 3-5 years from today, you probably would have never guessed that you were where you are now. Like I think about that all the time with the stuff that I've done and having a podcast and working in the fitness industry, right? There was just no possible way that I could have planned this so far. And I guarantee you, when I'm 24 now, so when I'm 29, I'm going to be in a vastly different place than I am now. And it will be surprising, but that's sort of the fun of it. Yeah,
it is fun. Yeah. Well, especially like when I was 24, if someone told me I'd be doing what I'm doing now, I'd be like, no, you're thinking of someone else kind of thing. I mean, like I was such on a 180 degrees in the opposite direction. So it is cool to think about just, where life takes you. And I appreciate where I am now more than I was back then. So I'm certainly not moving in the wrong direction, and really with very minimal navigation skills on my part. But I think things work out if you can relax and work hard and kind of roll with the punches.
I think there is a mistake a lot of young people make, and I would include myself in this category, and perhaps you would include yourself, or perhaps you would have included yourself when you were a little bit younger. But I feel like I used to, like right when I got out of college, I was like, okay, I got to get a job and I'm going to make like $100,000 a year. And like, I'll be living like my dad does. And I'll have I'll be having a new truck pretty soon. And I'm going to be like doing the thing. And that's just really not how it works. And I think I spent a lot of my, especially probably after I turned 20, 21, when I was graduating college, kind of kicking myself for that. And I think it's also the environment that I grew up in with like social media and stuff. And you sort of see this glamorous lifestyle from a lot of people, especially on the influencer side of things. But, you don't have to be that, and you probably won't be that. And if I was fortunate enough that I grew up in a middle-class family, and I'll probably stay within that realm my entire life. And like, that's good and cool. And the path for that is, it is a lot of turmoil and unknowns early on in your adult life, but they, just like everything else, they kind of figure themselves out, and you get by, and you'll eventually be in a place to where you are making enough money and you can support a family. And if you just kind of keep showing up and working hard and following your interests and gut, I think that you end up in a pretty good spot.
Yeah. That was a big part of me in the past, like even couple of years, is letting go of a strict idea that I want for myself. And there's a lot of things where I would just push so hard in this one direction in life, and it was yielding nothing. And meanwhile, I look at someone else doing the exact same thing I was doing, if not less effort, and they would just take off with it. And it was, pretty like frustrating time of my life, seeing them like, dude, why is nothing popping off? And or I'm not even like making progress. I'm not even like inching my way. And I think kind of by sort of letting go and just being like, well, whatever happens, happens. Sometimes you just need to take yourself in a different direction. And for me, I kind of felt like I was hitting my head against a wall. I've done videography for the past 7 years professionally, and just kind of feeling like I was stuck and just not moving the way I wanted to move. Just started to think about what are other avenues I can take in life, and for whatever reason, like firefighting was a pretty appealing kind of way to go with that, where you're working with your hands and you're outside, and you're working hard with a team of motivated people. So even just by doing that, like maybe I won't be a firefighter, in a year from now, and maybe I'll be going back to videography or something. Like, probably not, but who knows where I'll be from now. But going in this different direction has taught me stuff I never could have possibly learned where I was before. Even if I was successful in my endeavors previously, there's just life lessons I've learned from this that I think equipped me for a lot more than just like a career, but just helping out the people around me and being a decent person and a good friend to people.
Yeah. This kind of touches on, whoa, excuse me. I've been drinking this Diet Coke and I'm just burping. This kind of touches on what we were talking about earlier, where using the things that you've done as a model for going through the hard thing. And I think that everybody wants to get to the top of the mountain. Everybody's trying to get to the top of the mountain. And there are several, probably more than several, lots of times in your life where you're like on the path to the top and you come across a terrain that you're like, I can't cross this, or like, I don't want to cross this, or it just doesn't feel right anymore. And you have to go back down and then try to find another way up. And I think that 90% of people get so discouraged by that. It might not be the first time. They might hit that obstacle and then go down and find another way. And they might do that a couple times, but they eventually succumb to this idea that I'm just not cut out to make it to the top. And I think it's hard to do what we talked about, where you have to take multiple steps back sometimes, or at least it feels that way, to get to where it is you want to be. And the other challenging part is the top of the mountain is defined a little bit differently throughout your life. Like I've been going through something very similar career-wise recently, just because, I'm getting married in October. By the way, I shaved my face today. Thank you. I shaved my face today because I'm test running my facial hair. I want to see what I want to do for my wedding. And I cut my neck like 16 times because I haven't shaved my face in like 2 years probably.
Yeah.
But in any case, my point is, this is a good example for me. Thank you. I feel like I look like a child, but I'm sure I'll get used to it.
No, man, you look good. It's just a personal preference thing. You don't look like a child.
Yeah, thank you. I look like a grown man.
I'm a grown man.
Like the idea that I'm going to have children and a family is ever present in my life now. And it might not even be for the next like 5 to 10 years, but I know it's coming and I want it to come, and I want to be ready for it when it comes. And I want to be in a position to where I don't have to be trying to quote unquote make it or whatever. The stupid things that I'm after now aren't going to matter to me then. And so that's kind of what I mean. Like the top of the mountain looks a little bit differently for me now. And so this path doesn't seem right. And it's really difficult to turn around and go back and try to find a new way. But it's necessary, because it's like, it's crazy what you'll accomplish when there's no choice, right? Like you have to.
Right. Yeah. I think something I actually regret is putting that amount of time and effort into my career. And I think having the mindset of I have to kind of build everything up now. But there's also like a lot of friendships I've neglected and experiences, maybe like once in a lifetime experiences that I've missed out on for the sake of my career, right? And so there's a good amount of like regret there of prioritizing above everything else. And especially now that I'm moving in a direction where it's like I'm okay with where I'm headed. I'm not beating my head against a wall. I really like want to move forward prioritizing people above my career. Because because at the end of the day, like relationships are going to be far more important than what you're doing for your job. And yeah, so I mean, I think I wish I could tell my younger self to just like kind of chill out a little bit, and it's not as important as like the people in your life, right? So it's kind of like trying something like I look back and then I try to take that idea when I'm moving forward and not overdoing it and stretch myself too thin to where I'm no use to anyone else in my life, I guess.
Yeah. There's two things that I've heard recently that are kind of in the same vein. The first one was, can't remember where I heard it, but you were probably told this too. We kind of grew up in a culture, an environment where we might not have been told specifically by like our parents or anybody to pursue our passions, but it was very ingrained in the social structure that we grew up in, that we had the opportunity to pursue our interests and our passions and do what you love, and you never work a day in your life type stuff. At least I felt that way, and I aspired to do that. And I'm doing what I love. Like I love working out. I love fitness. I love helping people with their fitness. And I say this, and I still love it, but like, it's just a job. Like it's still work. And there's a lot of days that I don't want to do it, and I do it anyways. And I get there, and then I have fun and I do the thing, and it's awesome. Right. But it's still hard and it's still work. And I heard somebody say, don't pursue passion, pursue opportunity, and bring your passion to it. And I think that is a very, like, I'm a passionate guy. No matter what I do, I'm going to show up on time and I'm going to work hard and I'm going to try to be good at it. So if I'm a janitor or a personal trainer or a business executive, like I'll apply those same foundational elements of my character to the thing that I'm doing. And I'll probably do pretty well for the most part at anything that I try. And I know that I can. And I think that is probably more sound advice for the regular person, especially like, I don't think I'll ever feel comfortable in knowing what I want to do with my life. Like, I think I'll be in my 80s. Like, I'm still trying to figure this thing out. And I think for people who fall into that category, like, don't worry about the passion or the thing or the love of whatever. Do something and bring good character traits to it, and you'll get a lot of value out of it. The other thing that kind of brought this full circle was my buddy Ethan sent me this model. Have you ever heard of the Ikigai? It's like a Japanese, it means the reason for being.
No.
It's like a really ancient concept. It's basically a Venn diagram of 4 circles. So, think like 1 on the top, 1 on the bottom, 2 on the side. And one of them is what you're good at. Another one of them is what you can be paid for. Another one of them is what the world needs. And then the last one is what you love. And they have it really specifically defined. Like the cross section between it is like your passions and your profession and your vocation and your mission or whatever. But it's really transformative. I actually filled one out for myself because, like, for example, I love playing video games. I've been playing video games my whole life. And it's something that I have never really explored in my adult life because that's a quote unquote waste of time. Right. And I love fantasy and sci-fi and reading books like that. But I love those things. And so I think for a long time, I shut a lot of the stuff out of my life that I enjoyed for the sake of making it or pursuing a higher purpose, etc. But what I've recognized through this is that everything in your life doesn't have to be towards the same goal or vision or purpose. You can have stuff that's a complete waste of time that you like and enjoy, and you can work a job that you get paid for that you're good at that you don't totally love all the time. And all of those things balancing each other out is probably a more accurate representation of how most people should try to live their lives. So I actually would recommend you checking that out. I'll send you the link to it.
Yeah. What was it called?
It's called the Ikigai, Ikigai.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think the question of like passion versus maybe vocation or what you're supposed to do for your job is a question I don't know the answer to, but I do lean a little bit more on the side of let your passions be in that part of your life, and your job shouldn't be something that destroys you or you can't stand doing it. But I don't think it needs to be something that you're necessarily passionate about. And by bringing passion into it, it will naturally become something you enjoy because you'll excel at it and there's improvement and people notice that you get whatever recognition. I mean, I think there's a lot to gain from that. I was never passionate about firefighting before I started doing like the Wildland stuff. And from doing it, bringing passion to something I knew nothing about, it's been extremely, maybe not validating, but just beneficial in my life and has brought a lot of positivity and has made me a much better person. Like my wife has recognized a huge change in me as a husband since doing Wildland and learning a lot of these like valuable life lessons. And that's something I never really cared about. I never thought about being a fireman when I was a kid. I wanted to be a drummer. And, and I think about like, if you're like, I'm passionate about singing, I was like, all right, I mean, if your job is always, I'm going to make 30,000 a year being a singer, and you're constantly struggling paycheck to paycheck, are you enjoying your life just because you're doing what you love? And some people, yeah, but also there's like other things that you can enjoy in life, and you can enjoy singing from that, kind of sculpted out part. And if that's something you're not okay with, you're like, oh, no, I have to be a singer for a job. Are you passionate about singing? If you're not willing to do it as a hobby on the side without getting the money or validation from other people, like maybe not. Maybe what you actually want is like fame and fortune, and you're trying to figure out what you're interested in, but in your head you think is because I love music. Kind of rambling at that point, but I think it's important to like really, really audit yourself. Like, what do I actually want? Do I want to be a drummer, or do I want people to scream and throw money at me on stage? And
Right.
wanting to be a drummer and wanting that are two extremely different things.
Yeah, and I think, speaking on like a broader point, a life void of purpose or mission or passion is not a good one, right? Like, you need to have some outlet for that in some capacity. And I think most people don't realize that that's available to them in a lot smaller doses. And so, to kind of give an example, like if you really want to be a drummer and you recognize that that's something that you need to do in your life, and you've analyzed the fact that it truly isn't about the fame and fortune, and it is about just playing the drums in front of people, then it's like, what's the problem with working 9 to 5 and then starting a band with a couple buddies and going to and practicing, a couple times a week, and then getting in touch with a couple local bars in your area and then playing shows there, and you're doing the thing, right? And I'm a big fan of having like 5 plans, because if you have a lot of things going for you, you can always lean a little bit more or less into another thing, right? And if you tie your identity so heavily to one thing, especially things that are like being a drummer in a famous band, right? Like I know that there's a lot of like hard work and effort that goes into that, but if you don't have a very good shot at that statistically, right? And so why don't you set yourself up so that you'll be okay, and in a lot of ways still go all into the drummer thing, but give yourself an opportunity to seek value and feel confident in yourself from other areas of your life. Because when something goes bad and you only have that one thing, then you don't really have anything to derive positivity from.
Right. And I think people need to recognize too that that is the average human being right there. Of if you don't do whatever you're kind of passionate about for a living, it's okay. You're fine. You can kind of adapt to that. The people that have to be on one track are typically freaks, like professional athletes or doctors, right? And they're born for what they do. Kobe Bryant was born to play basketball. Like, he couldn't have done anything else. He would have been miserable, right? And so, I mean, I don't know Kobe that well. I'm assuming. And same thing with doctors. Doctors, like, you devote every minute of your life to becoming a doctor because that's what you have to do. And that's like 1%. But for everyone else, it's a lot more normal than that. You have to have things that you're passionate about as an outlet, and you have to have a creative outlet, a physical outlet, and your job doesn't have to match all of those. If it does, great. But, you still have to have those in your life separate from your vocation.
I was talking to my buddy Jack on the show, and he didn't say this verbatim, but I've thought a lot about it since. And it's this idea that's like, Michael Jordan always knew he was Michael Jordan. Like, if you are destined for greatness, you already know. And if you're thinking about whether or not you're going to be a Michael Jordan of your field, you're probably not. And like, that's a kind of a negative thing to say, but it's like, that mission and drive is so ingrained in the quality of your character and soul that there's just nothing that you could do or say, or anything that anybody else could do or say, that would peel you away from wanting to do that. Right. And if you're not already doing it, don't get me wrong, passions and interests and capability, all that stuff is a muscle that can be grown. But if you are truly going to be the number one and that's what you're striving to be and you don't already know it, it's likely not in the cards for you. And I think that we're fed a lot of information that is what's important. It's like to be the best and to do the best, but it's not. And you just need to remind yourself that a life of balance and a life of variability is probably going to give you a lot more fulfillment and validation from yourself and the people in your life than pursuing one specific thing would ever could.
Yeah. I think, yeah. And maybe just because of movies or TV or whatever, but it's like at first it does sound very negative to say, hey, you're not that guy. You know, if you're not in the gym 18 hours a day, you're not going to be a professional basketball player, right? Because the guy that is doing it will be. And you're like, oh, dang, I don't have the drive to do that. And it's like, well, it's because that's not what you're meant to do. That was meant for a very small group of people. And you have to find what your purpose is. I think everyone does have their own individual purpose. And it's important to find that out for yourself without this idea of how do I get to this one point, and more of how do I figure out where I'm supposed to go. And then you can figure it out from there. But it's almost assigned to you more than it's something that you decide for yourself. So I think having an open mind and trying a lot of different things and meeting different people is going to help you narrow that down and find something that's actually fulfilling and not going to really disappoint you one day when it doesn't work out and you poured your heart and soul into it.
Yeah. And I also think too, just a circumstance, right? Like that quote about bring your passion to opportunity. It's like a big piece of that is you're going to end up doing the things that were presented to you. Like we don't give enough credence to where we grew up, the kind of parents we had. Like for example, did you grow up in California? You did, right?
Arizona,
right? So my point still stands. Like you grew up in a hotter climate and you've lived in California for a number of years. Like Wildlands firefighting to me is not as accessible as it is to you. And granted, I could probably, if I was really interested in it, I could pursue it at some level. But like how much of just the fact that you grew up in an environment where that was more accessible made you pursue this as a path, right? And all of those things. So the opportunities that will present themselves to you are really based on things that you can't control, and in a lot of ways, luck. And if you're just taking the good opportunities as they come, you know, you're not always going to have control over the circumstances that you end up with. But I think it's sort of one of the great human skills to be able to reckon with our own circumstances. So we make meaning out of these things, right? And if I'm doing this thing and I say this is like what I've always wanted to do and been meant to, it's like that's probably not true. I just started it and I've created that meaning by way of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the best thing you could do is have an open mind and be willing to step forward when something presents itself, because it's impossible for me to tell what people are supposed to do, right? It's only people that are supposed to become professional athletes or whatever. But yeah, I think it's just a general statement. It's safer to say keep an open mind than destroy yourself going after this one thing. You don't have any backup plans and it's this or nothing because it's your dream. And I think a lot of people probably don't even realize what they think is a dream is actually not their dream. What they want is this thing that's kind of disguised as their dream. And there's, in my opinion, there's a lot of benefits to having a boring, normal, stable job. And it's hard to see when you do that all the time. But like from where I'm at, I do a bunch of random stuff, and like I see a tremendous value in having something steady. And there's a lot of like mental health benefits of that, but also a lot of benefits of kind of what I'm doing, where I'm a little bit more free to choose what I'm doing with my life. So you have to find out what works for you and stop looking at other people that you think are cool and trying to be that person. You have to find out, like, how do I succeed? I think the best thing you contribute, to the world is loving the people in your immediate circle and benefiting your neighbor and your friends. That's way more important than being, Insta famous or, being the toughest guy and whatever. Is like, how do you intentionally and meaningfully bring value to the people in your life? And naturally, you're going to have a much better time in your social environment with that and have a bigger sense of purpose than you ever will with doing well in your job.
I think this is kind of in that same vein, but it's sort of related to the opportunity thing. Like that usually, I know there's people out there that struggle socially and might not be involved with the community. And I think there's probably a lot of benefit to it takes work to sort of put yourself out there and be in a situation like joining a gym or whatever. But that even ties into that more. Like there's always an opportunity to help the people that are closest to you, be it like your spouse or your romantic partner or your friend group. Like if worse comes to worse, just reach out to them and be like, what do you guys need? Right. And I think that there's always an opportunity there. And at the very least showing up to that, I think is invaluable. We were in like this book club with a couple of the families that go to the gym, and it's like my favorite. We meet every like 3 months, and it's one of my favorite things to do now, man. Just like an evening every 3 months that I'm looking forward to hang out, have a couple drinks, eat good food. It's the best. And it's actually one of the things too, that's helped me realize the importance of having those social connections, because I'm somebody who I tend to seclude myself when given the opportunity. Right. And I have to work to sort of get myself out the door and actually engaging with my friends and family.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I'm the same way. It's a struggle that often requires the company of alcohol to be in social settings.
Dude, the year I did 2023 with no alcohol, and it like, I wouldn't say it cured that, but it helped that. Like I used to be the guy that was like, I can't go out, I can't dance, like I can't do anything without this. And I've never really been like a heavy drinker, but it made me realize that I can socialize with people if I haven't had a drink, and I can go to a wedding if I haven't had a drink. And it was really, I actually had the podcast that comes out in like a week or two from when you and I are talking was with a guy who has this crazy sobriety story, and we talked a lot about that.
Yeah, that's sick. Can you go out with your friends with, or like out clubbing and stuff? You can go have no drink and have a good time. Can you like dance?
Dude, I can't dance. Like it's really bad. I can't. I'm worried about the wedding. Like we're gonna do like a slow dance, and I'm just gonna have to like rock my hips, and I'm nervous.
Yeah, take a little preview lesson or something. I just mean more. Can you like go out with your friends and like club dance, not like slow dance,
like fist bump and like mosh pit type shit?
Yeah, like can you do that and have fun and not just be like mad self-conscious the whole time without alcohol?
Probably after like 15 minutes, I could.
I think that's that's the alpha challenges to raw dog club dancing, no alcohol or anything.
Out of all of the advice that we've given in this podcast, that's the most important. It's you need to go out to a club and you need to not drink, and you need to see if you can raw dog club dance. That's
how you know you've like peaked. Like that's the strongest mental capacity you could have in this life, I think. Just to go with no alcohol.
All right, man. Let's wrap this thing up, man. I really appreciate you. This was an awesome conversation. Is there anything else you want to add before signing off?
Yeah, dude, I think last time you were like, what makes a good person? Which is a very big question. Is that your signature at the end of every episode, or is that just sometimes?
So I did it for the first, I want to say 30 episodes. Oh, wait, you were like 36 or 8 or something. So I guess for the first like 40. And I missed a couple, but I haven't done it in a while, and not intentionally. I just forgot. I just keep forgetting.
Yeah. Okay, dude. I feel like you gotta bring that back. It's also sick, like Instagram reels, just to have like such a huge question and have like a little one sentence answer. But I was thinking about it because I was like, oh man, I'm doing Jules' podcast. I have to think about what a good person is. But I had a recent thought this past week of there are like a couple of things I did, like small things I went through, like an airport. I was helping someone get their bag off the conveyor belt and stuff like that. And I was thinking in my head before, like, so this lady was like kind of had this big old bag right on the conveyor belt at this airport. And I was thinking, when it comes around, I want to help her grab it because I know she can't grab it. She's like very tiny. And so it came around and I helped her grab it. And I was thinking, if I didn't put the forethought into that, I probably wouldn't have done that. I'm not like tooting my horn more as like a tiny little thing. But then I was kind of thinking, I wonder if that's what these meaningful people in your life, I think that is the difference of like people you look up to. And like myself, I'll notice if I don't put forethought into something, I'm kind of a bad friend. I drop the ball a lot. But I was thinking like the importance of intentionality and being a good person is having that forethought of actively thinking, how do I help the situation here? How do I help my friends? How do I contribute to whatever it is that they're doing? So I don't know. Yeah, random thought, but I think it's important to think about.
Yeah, I think that's also in line with what we kind of talked about, where it's you're sort of rising to the occasion, right?
Yep.
Being a good person is when opportunities present themselves, even if you're scared or even if it's hard or even if you don't think you can do it, is showing up, trying your best, putting the required work in necessary to do what is required. And I think in a lot of ways that's true, whether it's, you know, preparing for an ultra marathon or going and being a Wildlands firefighter or helping somebody get, you know, carry their luggage somewhere at the airport, right? Like, I think that showing up, giving your best, and, you know, rising to the occasion are good qualities to strive for.
Yeah. I think the difference between an actual like good person and someone who isn't necessarily the intention of what they want to be. It's what they actually end up doing. You know, you're gonna be judged by your actions, and yeah, I think having that intentionality is really what makes the difference and sets people apart.
Right on, man. Plug your stuff. Where can people find you and the content and stuff like that you put out?
Yeah, I do a clothing brand, by the way. If whoever's watching doesn't know about it, it's called Die Tired. Boom. Just Die Tired Co. on Instagram. It's not like a Wildland brand, but I make little funny videos on there and get shredded by other Wildland firefighters. It's pretty fun. So, yeah, you want to check it out? We have awesome hats and shirts and stuff, and it's a rootin' good time.
Yeah. I'll give you a testimonial. I have several Die Tired articles of clothing and hats. It's awesome. I'll make sure I link all that stuff for people interested in checking it out below.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode of Good People. If you guys are on YouTube, before you head out, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out Jonathan's information in the show notes below so you can see all the content and products that he's putting out himself and with Die Tired. Last but not least, if you enjoyed, please remember to share this episode with someone you love, perhaps your grandma. We'll see you next time.